And now we are talking about web reconnaissance. And web reconnaissance is a different sort of activity because it's usually something that's not exactly illegal, it's not exactly an attack, but very often it will mean that somebody is gathering intelligence in preparation for an attack or for future purposes of an attack that will be an opportunistic attack based on later information or events. And this is where the activity itself is very passive. So what that means is that it's not somebody who is directly connecting to a system, directly connecting to a website or network or a computer. And usually it's something that looks like maybe it's a lucrative target. So there's some passive data collection going on, or it's just a sweep where somebody is gathering the same kind of data about multiple targets, like suppose the top 500 most active websites or the highest earning websites or the websites with the most monthly active users. And that's really where we can see the scale of computer technologies come into play, because a lot of times somebody who's doing the web reconnaissance isn't doing it by hand. They just provide a list of targets and there's services and systems that do the work for them. And then they will just look and see what exactly got collected for them and then pick and choose their target. And this is not illegal, as I said. There's a lot of publicly available information that can help with web reconnaissance for an attacker or for a security professional who's looking to protect these assets or just to compare their assets versus what's out there at large in the internet world or the private network world. And it's not considered an attack because you're not bringing down or destroying any resources or denying anything to anyone, like service, denial of service, or like denying access to data by deleting it or altering it or ransoming it. You are not really bringing infrastructure down. You're not using illegal access. So it's not considered an attack. It's very much a casing the joint kind of activity, to use a term from bank robbery movies. And of course, the difference being that here it's happening online. And there are some websites and services which are really good in terms of information, and there's lots of reasons to provide this information. So these aren't exactly purpose-built for web reconnaissance with cybercrime or cyber attacks in mind. It's just that the way that it works is that the information provided here can be used for that purpose. Builtwith.com I really like. It's a very nice interface where you can put in a URL. You can try it with any site. You put in a URL and it'll tell you what technologies are being used by that site. And that includes whether they're using a particular JavaScript library, whether they're on a particular ad network, what their application server might be, just like a lot of interesting tidbits that they pick up by analyzing the structure of the data that comes back from the site when something is requested. And there's netcraft.com, which has really deep data mining based information stores on specific websites and then aggregate statistics. And then there's also a tool called ReconNG, which is actually built in Python. It's a really popular tool for doing web reconnaissance and cataloging reconnaissance data. And then there's also something called Spiderfoot. And Spiderfoot is another tool that's really sleek. And you can even use different sorts of mapping tools for this purpose. There's a lot of information that can be gathered passively, and the information is then used to plan attacks based on if somebody might have an old version of Apache that the information is exposed because of headers that return in responses, or just statistics about how many visitors there are, so it lets attackers plan accordingly, how to disguise themselves and kind of that crowd of users coming in and out. And the catalog of information can also be sold when attackers can really sell each other information about what the vulnerabilities on a site might be, based on the web reconnaissance that they've done. And so this is really a passive activity, which by itself might not mean much, but very often when there is smoke, there is fire. So it's one of the things to look out for as a computer security professional. If somebody is conducting a recognizable web reconnaissance, it might be part of some trouble later on.